Story number 1. Shadows of Silence. I never believed in ghosts. As a police officer stationed in the remote Nevada Triangle, skepticism was part of the job description. The Nevada Triangle, a desolate expanse between Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, was infamous for its eerie stillness and countless unexplained disappearances. Our small police station stood as a lone sentinel amidst the barren landscape, a beacon of law and order in an area that seemed to defy both. It was late October 1997 when Officer Jake Harris joined our night shift team, fresh out of the academy and eager to prove himself. Jake brought a youthful energy that was a stark contrast to the weary veterans who manned the station. Among them was Officer Tom Reynolds, a seasoned cop who had served here longer than anyone could remember. Tom had witnessed his fair share of strange occurrences, but nothing had prepared him for what was to come. The incident that plunged our station into darkness began innocuously enough. It was a typical night patrol, the snow beginning to fall gently, covering the landscape in a pristine white blanket. We received a call about a suspicious vehicle parked along the deserted highway. As Tom and I approached the location, the cold wind biting at our faces, we found an old sedan abandoned in the middle of the road. No signs of struggle, no indication of who had left it or why. Back at the station, the unease settled in. The nights grew colder, and the snowfall thicker, isolating us further from the outside world. Then, on a particularly frigid night in December, tragedy struck. Tom Reynolds was found dead in his office, an apparent suicide. The station was plunged into mourning, the loss of one of our own weighing heavily on everyone. But some whispers suggested there was more to his death, a darkness that had seeped into the very walls of our station. Almost immediately after Tom's passing, strange things began to happen. Footsteps echoed through the empty hallways when no one else was around. Doors slammed shut on their own, and the computers would power up without any input. The air grew thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the ghostly sounds that seemed to emanate from the shadows. Jake, still new to the job, was the first to report seeing Tom's silhouette sitting at his desk late one night. He described a figure hunched over papers, the room cold and unnaturally quiet. At first, we dismissed it as a hallucination, a byproduct of grief and exhaustion. But as more officers came forward with similar experiences, the reality became impossible to ignore. One night, as I sat alone in the station, the clock ticking loudly in the silence, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across the room. Suddenly, the door to Tom's office creaked open, revealing a darkened doorway. My heart raced as I watched, frozen in place, as a shadowy figure emerged. It was Tom, or what remained of him. His face was a blank void, eyes empty and haunting, sitting motionless at his desk. "Jake!" A whisper echoed through the room, though the name felt like it was coming from miles away. My voice caught in my throat as I tried to respond, but no words came out. The temperature dropped further, my breath visible in the frigid air. The apparition reached out a hand, fingers elongated and cold, before vanishing into thin air. Shaken to my core, I realized that whatever had taken Tom wasn't done yet. The presence in the station was more than just a restless spirit. It was a manifestation of something far darker. Each night, the disturbances grew more intense, the boundary between the living and the dead blurring within our confined space. Determined to uncover the truth, I delved into old case files and station records, searching for any clue that could explain the haunting. What I discovered was a chilling tale of greed and betrayal. Years before, the station had been the site of a covert operation targeting a notorious smuggling ring. Tom had been a key player in dismantling the operation, but something had gone terribly wrong. Documents were missing, and Tom had grown increasingly paranoid before his untimely death. The more I uncovered, the more it became clear that Tom's spirit was bound to the station, tormented by the secrets he had kept hidden. The missing documents, the unresolved cases, They all played a part in the curse that now plagued our station. The apparitions weren't just random hauntings. They were echoes of the past, seeking closure and release. One particularly harsh night, as the snowstorm raged outside, I decided to confront the spirit head-on. Armed with only a flashlight and a resolve to set things right, I entered Tom's office. The room was icy cold, the air thick with sorrow. I approached his desk, now covered in a thin layer of frost, and began to speak. "Tom, I know you're here. I understand what happened, and I want to help you find peace." The room seemed to respond, the shadows swirling around me as if the very essence of the place was listening. Slowly, the apparition of Tom materialized before me, his blank face still hauntingly void of expression. "I can't let go." The whisper came again, stronger this time. "They took everything from me." Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the depth of his pain. "Tell me what you need. I'm here to help." The air grew colder still, and I felt a presence pressing down on me, the weight of unresolved guilt and unfinished business. I reached out, placing a hand on the frozen desk, channeling my empathy and understanding. "Let me help you, Tom. We can find those documents, expose the truth, and finally bring you the peace you deserve." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the atmosphere shifted, the shadows receded, and the oppressive chill lifted, replaced by a gentle warmth that filled the room. The apparition of Tom smiled, a flicker of relief in his empty eyes, before dissipating into a cascade of snowflakes that danced in the fading light. The following morning, the disturbances ceased. The footsteps, the door slams, the eerie lights, all were gone. The station felt lighter. The darkness lifted as if a heavy burden had been removed. The missing documents were found hidden deep within the station's archives, evidence of the corruption that had led to Tom's demise. We honored Tom's memory by clearing his name and ensuring that the truth was no longer buried in the shadows. The haunted nights became a thing of the past, the spirits finally finding the closure they had long sought. The Nevada Triangle remained as enigmatic as ever, but our small station stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of truth to dispel even the darkest of curses. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls through the empty streets and the snow blankets the land in silence, I catch a faint whisper on the breeze, a lingering echo of gratitude from a spirit finally at peace. It serves as a reminder that some stories never truly end and that the shadows hold their secrets tightly, waiting for the right moment to be unveiled. Story number 2. Echoes in the Snow. I've always been a skeptic. As a seasoned officer patrolling the remote stretches of the Nevada Triangle, I prided myself on rationality and evidence. The Nevada Triangle, infamous for its high number of unexplained disappearances and eerie phenomena, was a place where legends thrived amidst the vast, desolate landscape, but nothing could have prepared me for the night that would challenge everything I believed. It was early January 2012, a month when the desert transformed into a frozen expanse, the relentless sun giving way to bitterly cold nights. Our small police station stood as a lone beacon of civilization amidst miles of untouched wilderness. That night, I was on my usual patrol, cruising down Highway 395 in my cruiser, the heater struggling against the icy air that seeped through every crack. Around 2 a.m., the silence was shattered by the crackle of my radio. "Officer Thompson, do you copy?" "Over. Copy that. Dispatch." I responded, adjusting my cap against the biting wind. Before I could resume my patrol, another call came through, this one urgent. "Officer Davis, we've received a 911 call from mile marker 47. The caller is panicked, saying they're coming." "Over." My heart skipped a beat. Mile marker 47 was deep within the Nevada Triangle, an area devoid of any permanent residents. "Dispatch, I'm en route," I replied, immediately flipping the cruiser's ignition. The snow began to fall heavier, reducing visibility as I navigated the winding road towards the reported location. As I approached mile marker 47, the landscape seemed to close in around me. The highway stretched endlessly, flanked by dense forests and barren hills. The snowflakes danced wildly in the wind, creating a blinding white curtain that obscured everything beyond a few feet. My headlights cut through the darkness, revealing the silhouette of an old, abandoned phone booth standing alone on the roadside. I parked my cruiser a safe distance away, the engine idling as I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the freezing night. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath visible in the frigid air as I approached the phone booth cautiously. The area was eerily silent, the only sound the relentless wind whipping through the trees. I reached the booth, the cold metal of the frame biting into my gloves. There was no sign of the caller, no body, no footprints, nothing to indicate anyone had been there. Just the phone, lying abandoned on the ground, its receiver hanging limply by the cord. I picked it up, the coldness seeping into my bones. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing in the empty night. No response. I set the phone down, frustration mounting. How could someone report a distress call and then vanish without a trace? The absence of any footprints suggested that no one had approached the booth, making the entire incident perplexing and unnerving. Determined to find answers, I decided to search the surrounding area. The snow was deep, crunching under my boots as I made my way into the forest. Flashlight held high, the trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches heavy with snow, creating long, ghostly shadows that danced with every gust of wind. Hours passed with no sign of anyone else, the isolation amplifying my growing unease. Just as I was about to return to my cruiser, a faint sound reached my ears, a soft, desperate whisper carried by the wind. "They're coming!" I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The voice was barely audible, yet unmistakably human. I turned around, scanning the darkness, but there was nothing, no movement, no figures, just the endless expanse of snow-covered trees. Panic began to set in as I realized the possibility that something, or someone, was out there, watching me. Quickened my pace, the whispers growing louder, more urgent. "They're coming! They're coming for you!" The sound seemed to come from all directions, the forest itself echoing with the haunting message. I broke into a run, the snow whipping against my face as I sprinted back to the phone booth. But no matter how fast I moved, the whispers followed, relentless and omnipresent, bursting into the clearing where the booth stood. I looked around frantically. The whispers ceased abruptly, leaving an oppressive silence that pressed down on me. Gasping for breath, I slid back into my cruiser, the engine roaring to life as I sped away from the haunted site. Back at the station, I filed the report, but the incident left me shaken to my core. There was no logical explanation, no evidence of foul play, no missing persons report that matched the caller's description. It was as if the caller had been a ghost, a restless spirit trapped in the Nevada Triangle, doomed to repeat their final moments in an endless loop of fear and despair. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that night lingered, a ghostly presence that haunted my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, something malevolent that watched and waited in the shadows of the Nevada Triangle. The incident at mile marker 47 became a cautionary tale among the officers, a reminder of the thin veil between reality and the supernatural. Driven by a mix of fear and determination, I decided to return to the site, hoping to uncover any clues that could explain the mysterious call. Equipped with better equipment and a deeper understanding of the local legends, I ventured back into the Nevada Triangle one snowy night. The same conditions that had set the stage for the haunting. As I approached the phone booth, the snow was falling heavier, the wind howling through the trees like the wails of lost souls. The phone booth stood unchanged, a silent witness to the countless stories of tragedy and unexplained phenomena. I parked my cruiser and stepped out, the cold biting into my skin as I approached the booth once more. I reached out to pick up the phone, my fingers trembling. "Hello," I called out, my voice steadier this time. fueled by a desperate need for answers. This time, there was a response, a faint, distorted voice whispering back, "They're still coming." I felt a chill run down my spine as the realization dawned on me. The spirit was still trapped, still seeking something, still warning me of an impending threat. I knew I couldn't ignore it, couldn't let another call go unanswered. Determined to break the cycle, I decided to perform a ritual of remembrance, honoring the spirit and seeking to bring peace to their restless existence. Following the instructions I'd uncovered during my research, I arranged candles around the phone booth, their flames flickering in the cold night air. I placed offerings of food and personal items, tokens of respect and remembrance. As I began to speak, recounting the story of the lost caller and acknowledging their fear and pain, the temperature seemed to rise, the oppressive cold lifting as if the forest itself was responding to my plea. The whispers returned, but this time, they were softer, less frantic. "Thank you." A sense of calm enveloped me, the tension of the night melting away like the snow under the morning sun. The spirit had found some semblance of peace, their presence easing into a gentle stillness that filled the air with warmth and gratitude. As dawn broke over the Nevada Triangle, the snow began to melt, revealing the untouched beauty of the landscape beneath. The phone booth stood silent, no longer a beacon of fear but a monument to the enduring power of compassion and understanding. The mystery of the 911 call at mile marker 47 remained unsolved. But the haunting had been quelled, the restless spirit finally at peace. Returning to the station, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and relief. The Nevada Triangle still held its secrets, but I had faced the unknown and helped to bring light to the shadows. The legend of the haunted phone booth became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unending quest to uncover the truth, no matter how elusive it may be. But sometimes, during the quiet moments of winter, when the wind whispers through the barren trees and the snow blankets the earth in silence, I catch a faint echo of gratitude on the breeze, a gentle reminder that some spirits linger, seeking remembrance and peace, and that every mystery holds a story waiting to be heard and honored. Story number 3. Whispers through the night. I've always prided myself on being a rational man. As a seasoned officer patrolling the remote stretches of the Nevada Triangle, I'd encountered my fair share of oddities, strange noises, unexplained lights, and the occasional sighting of a deer with glowing eyes. But nothing could have prepared me for the night that made me question everything I thought I knew about the supernatural. It was December 1997, a month when the desert transforms into a frigid expanse, the scorching days giving way to bone-chilling nights. The Nevada Triangle, infamous for its high incidence of disappearances and eerie phenomena, was my regular patrol area. On that particular night, the snow had started to fall early, blanketing the landscape in a thick layer of white that muffled the usual desert sounds. I had been on duty for hours, cruising down Highway 395 in my patrol car, a beacon of light in the darkness. The radio was quiet, as it often was on these desolate roads. The solitude was comforting, a stark contrast to the chaos of city life I'd left behind. My partner, Officer Daniels, had called in sick, leaving me to handle the night shift alone. Around 2 a.m., my radio buzzed to life. "Officer Davis, we've got a report of a lone man wandering on the east side of the highway, near mile marker 47. Possible distress call. Over. Copy that. Dispatch." "I'm on my way," I replied, immediately flipping the cruiser's ignition. Snowflakes swirled in the beam of my headlights as I navigated the winding road, the desolate beauty of the Nevada Triangle both mesmerizing and intimidating. As I approached mile marker 47, the snow thickened, reducing visibility to mere feet. The road was deserted, the only sign of life the occasional footprint leading away into the forest. I slowed down, scanning the area with my flashlight and peering through the windshield for any movement. That's when I saw him, a tall, imposing figure standing by the roadside, clad in a heavy black coat that seemed out of place against the pristine snow. His stature was unnaturally large, and as I watched, he took a step forward, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as he had appeared. My heart raced, but I shook it off as a trick of the light or a late-night wanderer seeking help. I parked my cruiser a safe distance away and approached cautiously, the crunch of snow under my boots breaking the eerie silence. As I neared the man, my flashlight caught something that made my blood run cold. A shadowy figure lurking inside the vehicle. "Sir, do you need assistance?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't respond. Instead, he turned and began to walk towards me, his movements slow and deliberate. I felt an inexplicable urge to step back, but my training kicked in, urging me to remain professional. Before I could react, the man vanished into thin air, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the snowy highway. Confused and unnerved, I glanced around, the forest surrounding me like a silent, watchful guardian. My radio emitted a burst of static, cutting off any chance of communication with dispatch. I reached for my radio, but it was dead. Panic set in as I realized I was cut off, stranded in the middle of nowhere with no way to call for backup. The temperature dropped sharply, my breath forming visible puffs in the frigid air. Desperate to make sense of what I'd just witnessed, I decided to follow the footprints left by the man, hoping to find him or uncover any clues about his disappearance. The footprints led me deeper into the forest, the snow muffling my footsteps as I navigated through the dense trees. The moonlight filtered through the branches, casting long, haunting shadows that danced around me. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant howl of a lone wolf. As I ventured further, my flashlight flickered, the beam wavering as if struggling against an unseen force. Suddenly, a chilling scream pierced the night air, echoing through the trees like a desperate plea for help. My heart pounded in my chest as I followed the sound, the footprints leading me to a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a police cruiser, eerily similar to mine, but old and battered, half buried in the snow. The vehicle's interior was dark, the windows frosted over, but my heart skipped a beat as I noticed the dashboard camera still recording. I approached cautiously, the cold seeping into my bones despite my heavy coat. As I peered inside, my blood ran cold. The camera had captured the very moment I'd encountered the mysterious man. Him stepping out of the vehicle and then the shadowy figure gliding past the front seat before vanishing into the night. A sense of dread washed over me as I realized the grim truth. This was no ordinary patrol car. It was the very same model my cruiser was, and the year on the dashboard read 1983. The implications were horrifying. Was this a ghostly reenactment of a past tragedy, or something far more sinister? Suddenly, the air grew colder, and a whisper echoed through the clearing, a voice filled with sorrow and despair. "Don't follow, don't leave." I spun around, trying to locate the source of the voice, but there was nothing, only the relentless snow and the silent forest. The oppressive feeling intensified, making it hard to breathe. My rational mind screamed that it was just the wind or a trick of my imagination. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to take a picture of the dashboard camera footage, hoping it would provide some answers. As I lifted my phone to snap the image, the temperature plummeted even further, and a dark shadow loomed over me, moving with unnatural speed towards my cruiser. Fear paralyzed me as the shadow reached out, its presence suffocating. I tried to move, to run, but my legs refused to obey. The shadow enveloped me, the cold seeping into my very soul, as I felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow and loss. When I finally broke free from the grip of the shadow, I was alone once more, the clearing empty and silent. Shaking uncontrollably, I sprinted back to my cruiser, the sense of being watched lingering like a dark cloud over me. As I reached the vehicle, the dashboard camera had stopped recording, the screen blank once more. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I started the engine and drove away as fast as I could. the image of the faceless shadow etched into my mind. The radio remained dead, leaving me in a state of heightened alert as I navigated the treacherous roads back to civilization. By the time I reached the nearest town, dawn was breaking, painting the sky with hues of pink and orange that felt almost comforting after the night's horrors. Exhausted and traumatized, I decided then and there to request a transfer. Unable to shake the fear that the Nevada Triangle held dark secrets best left undisturbed. Weeks turned into months, but the memory of that night lingered, haunting my dreams and creeping into my waking thoughts. I couldn't explain what I'd seen or felt, and the lack of answers only deepened the mystery. The legends of the Nevada Triangle were no longer just stories. They were a chilling reality that I had experienced firsthand. But sometimes, when the winter winds howl through the desolate highways and the snow blankets the earth in silence, I catch a faint whisper on the breeze, a sorrowful echo from the past reminding me that some mysteries are never truly solved and that the shadows of the Nevada Triangle still hold their secrets tightly. Story number 4. The Wanderer of Nevada Triangle. Winter in the Nevada Triangle is unforgiving. The vast expanse of desert transforms into a frozen wasteland, where temperatures plunge below zero and the wind howls through the barren landscape like a restless spirit. As a patrol officer, I was no stranger to these harsh conditions, but nothing could have prepared me for the night that would forever change my perception of reality. It was December 1997, a particularly brutal winter that had already claimed several lives and left the area shrouded in silence. I had been on patrol for hours, the rhythmic hum of my cruiser's engine a constant companion as I navigated the desolate highways. The Nevada Triangle, infamous for its mysterious disappearances and unexplained phenomena, was a place where the line between myth and reality blurred into obscurity. Around midnight, my radio crackled to life with a routine check-in. "Officer Davis, everything clear on your sector. Over. Copy that. Dispatch," I replied, adjusting my cap against the biting cold. The night was eerily quiet, the only sounds the occasional crackle of my heater and the distant howl of the wind through the canyons. Just as I was about to resume my patrol, another call came through, this one urgent. "Officer Davis, we've got a report of a lone man wandering on Highway 395, near mile marker 47. He's been standing by the roadside for over an hour." "Roger that. I'm on my way," I responded, immediately flipping the cruiser's ignition. Highway 395 was a narrow stretch cutting through the heart of the triangle, often deserted except for the occasional traveler or lost soul. As I approached mile marker 47, the snow began to fall more heavily, reducing visibility to mere feet. My headlights pierced through the blizzard, revealing the silhouette of a man standing motionless by the roadside. He was tall, clad in a heavy black coat that seemed out of place against the white expanse. What struck me most was his lack of facial features, no eyes, no mouth, nothing to convey emotion or intent. I slowed the cruiser to a stop, the engine idling as I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the storm. The cold was biting, each breath visible in the icy air as I approached the man cautiously. "Hello? Do you need assistance?" I called out, my voice barely audible over the wind. He didn't respond. Instead, he stood still, his presence both unnerving and sorrowful. I reached out a hand, intending to offer help, but before my fingers could make contact, he vanished. One moment he was there, the next, nothing but swirling snowflakes in his place. I stood there, stunned, my heart racing. I glanced around, half expecting him to reappear, but there was no sign of him, only the relentless storm and the desolate highway stretching into the darkness. Returning to my cruiser, I couldn't shake the image of the faceless man. The encounter felt surreal, like a scene from a nightmare rather than real life. Determined to find answers, I decided to dig into the local lore surrounding Highway 395 and the Nevada Triangle. Over the next few days, I spoke with colleagues, local residents, and scoured old police reports. One name kept resurfacing: Samuel Turner. a miner who had vanished in the Triangle during a severe snowstorm in 1983. Samuel was known for his dedication to his work and his family, but his disappearance had left a void that was never filled. No trace of him was ever found, and the official conclusion was that he had succumbed to the harsh winter conditions. But the stories whispered among the locals told a different tale, one of restless spirits and unfinished business. They spoke of seeing a tall man in a black coat on stormy nights, a spectral figure lost between worlds, forever searching for something he could never find. Driven by a mix of duty and curiosity, I decided to return to mile marker 47 one stormy night, hoping to uncover the truth behind Samuel Turner's disappearance. Armed with my flashlight, camera, and a sense of determination, I braved the elements once more. As I drove down Highway 395, the storm raged around me, the snow swirling in a chaotic dance that made navigation treacherous. Mile marker 47 loomed ahead, the highway almost invisible beneath the thick blanket of snow. My headlights finally caught the figure again, tall, cloaked in black, standing silently by the roadside. This time, I didn't hesitate. I pulled over, my heart pounding in my chest, and stepped out into the storm. The air was thick with anticipation, the only sounds the relentless wind and the crunch of snow under my boots. I approached the man cautiously, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. "Samuel? It's me, Officer Davis. Are you all right?" He remained silent, but there was something undeniably tragic in his stance. I reached out again, my hand trembling, as my fingers brushed against his shoulder. A surge of cold energy enveloped me, and his form began to dissolve into the snowflakes swirling around us. Before I could react, the snow began to swirl violently, forming into a vortex that pulled me towards the center. I tried to resist, but the force was too strong, dragging me into a realm of darkness and despair. I awoke hours later, lying unconscious near my cruiser, the storm having subsided. My head throbbed, and my body felt numb from the cold. As I tried to piece together what had happened, my thoughts kept returning to Samuel Turner and the mysterious figure I had encountered. Determined to prevent others from experiencing the same fate, I delved deeper into the investigation, uncovering old journals and personal accounts from those who had encountered the spirit of Samuel Turner. It became clear that his soul was trapped, caught between the harsh reality of the desert and the ethereal plane of spirits. With newfound resolve, I sought the help of a local medium, hoping to communicate with Samuel and help him find peace. The night we conducted the séance was the coldest of the season, the wind howling through the redwoods like the mournful cry of lost souls. As the medium began to channel Samuel's spirit, the temperature dropped further, and the air grew heavy with sorrow. A ghostly apparition materialized before us, tall, cloaked in black, his face still blank but his presence filled with anguish. "Why are you here?" the medium asked, her voice steady despite the overwhelming sadness in the air. "I am lost," Samuel's voice echoed, a haunting whisper that seemed to resonate within my very soul. "I cannot find my way back. My family, my home, everything is gone." Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the depth of his despair. "Samuel, we're here to help you. Let us guide you to peace." The apparition seemed to waver, the sorrow in his eyes softening. "Remember us, honor our memory, and the curse will be lifted." With those final words, Samuel Turner began to fade, his spirit finally finding the closure it had long been denied. The oppressive cold lifted, replaced by a sense of warmth and tranquility that filled the room. As I left the séance, the snow-covered highway felt different, less menacing, more like a pathway to redemption. The legend of Samuel Turner was no longer just a haunting tale but a story of love, loss, and the enduring power of compassion to heal even the deepest wounds. But even now, years later, the memory of that night lingers. Sometimes, when the winter winds howl through the Nevada Triangle and the snow blankets the desert in silence, I catch a faint whisper on the breeze, a gentle echo of gratitude from a spirit finally at peace. It serves as a reminder that some mysteries are best resolved with empathy and understanding, and that the line between the living and the dead is thinner than we ever imagined. Story number 5. The Woman in White. I've always believed that the Nevada Triangle held more secrets than anyone could imagine. As a seasoned patrol officer, I'd heard the stories countless times. Tales of unexplained disappearances, eerie lights, and restless spirits wandering the desolate highways. But nothing prepared me for the night I encountered her, the Woman in White. It was a frigid December night in 1985. The snow had been relentless, burying the landscape in a thick, white blanket that seemed to swallow sound itself. I was on my routine patrol, cruising the lonely roads that cut through the heart of the Nevada Triangle. My cruiser's heater worked overtime, but the chill still seeped through the cracks, making every breath visible in the icy air. Around midnight, my radio crackled to life with a routine check-in. "Officer Davis, all clear on your sector. Over. Copy that. Dispatch," I replied, my voice steady despite the biting cold. The night was eerily silent. The only sounds the crunch of snow under my tires and the distant howl of the wind through the barren trees. I kept my eyes peeled for any signs of trouble. But as hours passed, the monotony began to weigh on me. That's when I saw her. A figure standing in the middle of the road, illuminated by the weak glow of my headlights. She was a woman, dressed in a flowing white gown that contrasted sharply against the dark, snow-covered asphalt. Her hair was long and loose, cascading over her shoulders like a waterfall of silk. But what struck me most was her face, completely blank, devoid of any features. It was as if her identity had been erased, leaving only an empty canvas where her visage should be. I slowed the cruiser, heart pounding in my chest. "Hello," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't respond. Instead, she stood motionless, her presence both haunting and inexplicably sorrowful. I reached for my flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness as I approached cautiously. As I stepped out of the car, the cold night air hit me like a slap. The snow swirled around my feet, making it difficult to maintain my balance. I moved closer, each step deliberate, trying to make sense of what I was witnessing. "Are you all right?" I asked, extending a hand in a gesture of reassurance. Still, she remained silent, her gaze fixed on the horizon as if searching for something or someone. I felt a chill run down my spine, an inexplicable sense of dread settling over me. It was then that I heard it, a faint whisper carried by the wind, soft and indistinct. "Don't follow," the voice seemed to say, though no one else was around to hear it. I froze, my instincts screaming at me to retreat, but curiosity and concern overrode my fear. "Mississippi, do you need help?" Her form began to shimmer, the edges of her figure blurring like mist in the night air. Suddenly, she vanished, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of her sorrowful presence. I stood there, breathless, trying to comprehend the inexplicable encounter. Shaken, I returned to my cruiser, the radio now silent and lifeless. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the image of her blank face and the haunting whisper that followed me into the darkness. The following morning, I reported the incident to my superior, Officer Thompson, who listened with a mixture of skepticism and concern. "Probably just a trick of the light or some drifter," he suggested, though his tone lacked conviction. But the more I thought about it, the more unsettled I became. That night, the radio malfunctioned entirely, leaving me without communication for the remainder of my shift. Every time I glanced in the rearview mirror, I couldn't help but feel eyes watching me from the shadows. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of the woman in white lingered like a ghost in my mind. I began to research local legends and historical records, desperate for answers. What I found was a tragic story from decades past. A family who had vanished without a trace on a similar winter night. Their car was found abandoned, half buried in snow, with no signs of struggle or explanation. The only clue was a set of large, four-toed footprints leading into the forest, never to return. The legend spoke of Eleanor, the matriarch of the family, who had lost her children to a sudden snowstorm, overwhelmed by grief and despair. It was said that her spirit wandered the highways, forever searching for her lost ones. Some believed she was cursed to relive her tragedy each winter, her sorrow manifesting as the woman in white. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to return to the spot where I had seen her, equipped with my flashlight, camera, and a deep sense of purpose. I ventured back into the Nevada Triangle on a cold December night. Years after the original incident, the road was familiar, yet every step felt heavy with anticipation and fear. The snow had piled up since my last visit, transforming the landscape into an even more unforgiving terrain. As I approached the same stretch of highway, the air grew colder, the silence thicker. I parked my cruiser at a safe distance and stepped out, the crunch of snow under my boots breaking the stillness. I walked towards the middle of the road, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. When I saw her again, the woman in white, standing silently as if waiting for me. This time, however, there was a palpable sadness in her presence, an ache that seemed to resonate with my own hidden fears and regrets. I reached out, my hand trembling, attempting to bridge the gap between our worlds. "Eleanor," I whispered, using the name I had uncovered from the legends. "I'm sorry for what happened to you. I want to help." Her form shimmered once more, the outline of her gown rippling like water. Slowly, she began to fade, the sorrow in her eyes softening. "Remember us," she whispered, her voice now filled with a gentle yearning. "Keep our story alive." As she vanished, the air around me seemed to lighten, the oppressive cold lifting as if a burden had been released. I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a connection to the lost souls that haunted the Nevada Triangle. Returning to the precinct, I shared my experience with Officer Thompson, who listened with newfound respect and disbelief. "You actually saw her," he said, shaking his head in amazement. "Maybe there's more to these legends than we thought." Word of my encounter spread among the officers, bringing a sense of closure to those who had long been haunted by the unresolved mystery of Eleanor and her family. The Nevada Triangle remained as enigmatic as ever. But now, armed with understanding and empathy, the restless spirits found a semblance of peace. But sometimes, on the coldest winter nights, when the wind howls through the silent highways and the snow blankets the land in quiet stillness, I catch a faint whisper on the breeze, a gentle echo of Eleanor's gratitude. It serves as a reminder that some stories never truly end, and that compassion can bridge the divide between the living and the dead. Story number 6. Echoes in the Pines. I've always respected the quiet solitude that comes with night patrols. There's something grounding about the stillness of the forest, the way the moonlight filters through the dense canopy of pines, casting long shadows that dance with the gentle breeze. But that particular night in the Nevada Triangle was different. Etched into my memory as a night where silence became a sinister veil hiding horrors beyond comprehension. It was December 1983, one of the coldest winters the region had seen in decades. The snow lay thick on the ground, muffling the usual sounds of wildlife and turning the forest into an expanse of white silence. I was Officer Mark Reynolds, a seasoned patrol officer with over 10 years on the force. Nights like these were routine, patrolling the remote stretches where few dared to venture. Around 11 p.m., the radio crackled to life with a routine check-in from dispatch. "Reynolds, everything clear on your sector." "Copy that, dispatch." "All clear," I responded, adjusting my cap against the biting wind. I continued my slow crawl down the winding road, headlights cutting through the darkness. That's when I heard it. A piercing scream that shattered the night's calm. It was raw, filled with agony and fear, echoing through the trees like a desperate plea. My heart skipped a beat. "Dispatch. Possible distress call. Over." Static filled the airwaves, the connection cutting out before I could provide more details. Frustration bubbled up inside me. Dispatch. Come in. Do you copy? No response. Just the relentless howl of the wind and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. I grabbed my flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness as I parked the patrol car near the edge of the forest. The screams had stopped, leaving behind an unsettling silence that pressed heavily against my ears. I approached the source of the noise, my breath visible in the frigid air. The forest was dense, the trees towering like silent sentinels guarding secrets best left untouched. As I delved deeper, the snow crunching under my boots seemed unnaturally loud, each step amplifying the tension that gripped me. Then, I saw it, a lone shoe, small and out of place, half buried in the snow. My pulse quickened. Whoever had been here had left in a hurry. Or perhaps, something had taken them. I followed the faint trail of footprints leading into the heart of the forest, the snow-covered ground offering no clues as to where they might lead. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as I navigated through the dense foliage, the cold seeping into my bones despite my heavy uniform. The footsteps started to fade, disappearing into the darkness as abruptly as they had appeared. Confusion and worry gnawed at me. Had I misheard the screams? Was there someone else out here? Just as I was about to turn back, my radio emitted a sudden burst of static. Reynolds, are you there? Respond. Over. I frowned, trying to reach a clearer signal. Dispatch. I found a shoe and some footprints. I'm investigating. Before I could finish, the radio cut out entirely. Panic surged through me. I looked around, trying to locate the source of the original scream. But the forest remained eerily silent. My flashlight flickered, casting fleeting shadows that played tricks on my mind. A chill ran down my spine as I felt an oppressive presence around me. The air grew colder, my breath coming in rapid gasps. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A dark figure standing just beyond the reach of my flashlight. It was a man, dressed in a long, black coat, his face obscured by the darkness. No discernible features, just a void where his face should be. Hello, I called out, my voice wavering. Can you help me? The figure didn't respond. Instead, it began to move towards me, each step deliberate and unnerving. I took a step back, my instincts screaming to run, but my legs refused to obey. The air around us seemed to thicken, the silence amplifying the fear that gripped me. Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet gave way, the snow collapsing into a hidden crevice. I tried to leap back, but it was too late. I plunged into the darkness, the world turning black around me. When I awoke, I was lying on the cold ground, the snow covering me like a suffocating blanket. My head throbbed, and my limbs felt heavy, as if weighed down by an invisible force. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. Panic set in as I realized I was paralyzed, unable to call out or even scream. Time lost all meaning as I lay there, the memories of that night swirling in my mind like the snowstorm that had initially brought me here. The faceless man, the screams, the unending silence. It all seemed like a fragmented nightmare. But deep down, I knew it was real. Hours passed before I could finally move, the stiffness in my muscles making each motion a painful effort. I dragged myself to my patrol car, the cold seeping into every fiber of my being. As I tried to start the engine, the radio crackled to life once more, a familiar static-filled voice breaking through the silence. Reynolds, report your status. Do you copy? Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. I realized with horror that I couldn't respond. My throat was dry, my voice lost in the overwhelming cold and fear. Desperation clawed at me as I frantically tried to communicate, but nothing came out. The sun began to rise, casting a pale light over the snow-covered landscape. I struggled to sit up, the reality of my situation sinking in. The footprints around me had disappeared, leaving no trace of where I had been or how I had survived the night. The patrol car was just as I had left it, the door slightly ajar, but no sign of any disturbance. As I made my way back to civilization, The memory of the faceless man haunted every step. The whispers of the wind seemed to carry his silent plea, a reminder that some mysteries are best left unsolved. The Nevada Triangle remained an enigma, its dark secrets buried beneath layers of snow and time. To this day, I carry the scars of that night, both physical and emotional. The experience changed me, instilling a deep respect for the unknown and the forces that dwell beyond our understanding. I often wonder if I truly escaped the grasp of the faceless man or if his presence still lingers, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to wander into his haunted domain. Story number 7. The Shadow in the Nevada Triangle. I've always been fascinated by unsolved mysteries, drawn to the shadows where truth and legend intertwine. Growing up in Las Vegas, the Nevada Triangle was more than just a geographic anomaly. It was a hub of eerie tales and unexplained phenomena. But nothing prepared me for the night I encountered the darkness that swallowed Officer Mark Reynolds. It was the winter of 1983, a particularly harsh season that blanketed the desert landscape in a thick layer of snow. The Nevada Triangle, known for its high incidence of unexplained disappearances, was my regular patrol area as a rookie officer. Mark Reynolds, a seasoned cop with a no-nonsense attitude, was my partner. We had built a camaraderie over countless shifts, our shared dedication keeping us vigilant against the dangers lurking in the vast, frozen expanse. That night, the temperature had plummeted well below freezing, and the wind howled through the narrow canyons like a restless spirit. Our radio crackled intermittently, static-filled messages from dispatch blending with the howling wind. As we cruised down the deserted highway, the headlights of our squad car cutting through the darkness, an unsettling silence enveloped us. Another long night ahead, Mark muttered, adjusting his gloves against the biting cold. Yeah, but at least it's quiet, I replied, trying to mask the unease creeping up my spine. We had been on patrol for hours without incident, the monotony of the night settling in. That's when we spotted the parked car, a rusty, old sedan abandoned by the roadside, its windows frosted over. It was unusual to find vehicles left unattended in this area, especially during such severe weather. Let's check that out, Mark suggested, turning the car into a narrow side road that led into a denser section of the forest. As we approached the vehicle, the crunch of snow under our boots was the only sound breaking the oppressive silence. Mark led the way, flashlight in hand, while I followed closely behind. The car seemed undisturbed, no signs of recent use or struggle. We stepped out, the cold air stinging our faces as we inspected the exterior. Nothing here, Mark said, stepping back into the squad car. Looks like someone just left in a hurry. I nodded, starting the engine, but as we prepared to leave, something caught my eye: the dashboard camera, a relatively new addition to our patrol cars, had been recording the entire encounter. Mark glanced at the playback, his expression unreadable. Take a look at this, he said, rewinding the footage to the moment we approached the car. On the screen, we saw Mark step out of the car, walking towards the sedan with a cautious gait. Just as he reached the door, a shadow loomed behind him, an unnatural darkness that seemed to ripple and distort the air around it. The footage captured a figure clad in black, his presence almost suffocating, yet it made no sound. Mark glanced over his shoulder, but there was nothing there in reality. Did you see that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark nodded slowly, a flicker of fear crossing his usually stoic face. Yeah, I saw it. Must have been some trick of the light. We decided to leave, but as we started to drive away, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The headlights illuminated our path, but the dense forest on either side seemed to close in, the shadows deeper and more foreboding than before. The next morning, Mark didn't show up for his shift. Concerned, I called the precinct, only to be met with hushed whispers and blank stares. He went missing last night, one dispatcher finally said, her voice trembling. He never returned from patrol. Panic surged through me. What do you mean he never returned? He was right here with me. We've checked the car, the dispatcher replied. No signs of a struggle. His radio was left on, but there was no distress call. Couldn't believe it. Mark had always been meticulous, leaving no trace behind. Determined to find answers, I requested access to the dashboard camera footage. As I watched it again, the image of the shadowy figure resurfaced, his presence more menacing this time. Mark's movement towards the car was hesitant, almost reluctant, as if he sensed the impending doom. I need to go back, I told myself, driven by a mix of fear and responsibility. I need to find him. Gathering my gear, I set out into the frigid night, retracing our patrol route. The forest was silent, the snow muffling my footsteps as I navigated the same narrow roads. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs heightened my anxiety, the legends of the Nevada Triangle echoing in my mind. Hours passed with no sign of Mark, the cold gnawing at my resolve. Just as I was about to give up, I stumbled upon the same abandoned sedan, its presence a chilling reminder of our earlier encounter. The snow around the car was undisturbed, no footprints leading away or towards it. But then, I noticed something, a set of large, four-toed footprints leading into the forest, abruptly stopping in the thickening snow. My heart raced as I followed the trail, the footprints taking me deeper into the wilderness where the trees loomed like silent sentinels. The air grew colder, the darkness more oppressive, as if the forest itself was closing in on me. The whispers of the wind seemed to carry Mark's name, each gust a desperate plea for help. Suddenly, the ground beneath me began to tremble, the snow cracking ominously. A shadowy figure materialized before me, its form shifting and indistinct. It moved with an unnatural grace, the four-toed footprints leading directly to it. I froze, the terror of what I was witnessing paralyzing me. "Don't follow." A voice echoed in my mind, a whisper carried by the wind. "Leave now." But I couldn't turn back. The thought of Mark out there, lost in this frozen nightmare, pushed me forward. I took a hesitant step towards the figure, my flashlight flickering as the shadows danced around us. The figure extended a hand, its movements slow and deliberate. "Help me," it whispered, the voice a haunting blend of sorrow and desperation. "Find me." I reached out, the cold biting through my gloves as my fingers brushed against the darkness. Instantly, a surge of energy pulled me into the void, the world around me dissolving into an endless night of snow and shadows. I awoke in a desolate landscape, the snow stretching endlessly in every direction. The sky was a perpetual twilight, the stars hidden behind thick clouds. Panic set in as I realized I was alone, the weight of my mission pressing down on me. "Mark," I called out, my voice cracking with fear. "Mark, where are you?" A distant cry echoed through the snow, guiding me towards a faint light in the distance. As I trudged through the icy terrain, the cries grew louder, filled with pain and despair. Finally, I stumbled upon a frozen clearing where the shadowy figure stood, now more defined and sorrowful. "Mark," pleaded, my voice breaking. "Are you here?" The figure nodded slowly, its form shimmering in the cold light. "He's lost," it whispered, trapped between worlds, unable to find peace, determined to save my friend. I searched the clearing for any clues, finding an old, weathered medallion buried in the snow, a relic Mark had always carried. As I picked it up, a warmth spread through me, countering the frigid air. "This must be the key," I murmured, holding the medallion tightly. The figure extended a hand once more, guiding me towards a narrow path that led deeper into the snowy abyss. "Use it to guide him," it instructed, the voice now filled with hope. Following the path, I encountered visions of Mark, his silhouette fading and reappearing. Trapped in a cycle of endless snowstorms, the medallion glowed brighter, illuminating the path and breaking the oppressive darkness. With each step, the landscape shifted, the snow parting to reveal a way out. "Mark," I called, holding the medallion high. "Follow me. We're coming to get you." The final stretch was a blur of light and shadow, the medallion's glow leading the way through the frozen labyrinth. As we reached the edge of the clearing, the darkness lifted, the snow melting away to reveal the familiar terrain of the Nevada Triangle. Mark stood before me, his face pale but alive, the medallion still glowing in my hand. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. "You saved me." But as we embraced, a chill wind swept through the area, and the shadowy figure reappeared one last time. "Remember our story," it echoed, the voice now fading into the night air. "Respect the balance." Back in the precinct, Mark recounted his harrowing experience, the disbelief on our colleagues' faces mirroring my own initial skepticism. The medallion remained a mystery, its origins tied to the legends of the Nevada Triangle and the restless spirits that guarded its secrets. The winter of 1983 was a turning point, a testament to the thin line between reality and the supernatural. Mark and I remained close, our bond strengthened by the ordeal we had endured together. But the shadows of that night lingered, a constant reminder of the mysteries that still haunt the Nevada Triangle. Sometimes, on particularly cold nights, I catch a faint whisper in the wind, a lingering echo of a promise made in the heart of the wilderness. It's a reminder that some stories never truly end, and that the spirits of the lost still seek resolution in the endless dance of snow and shadows.